Brian Mast, Republican congressman from the great state of Florida and member of the Armed Services Committee. We have a lot to get to. Let's start here. Thank you for that and for your service. This is a Capitol Hill behind-the-scenes type of item. I would guess that most people don't really tune in for it. So what do the American people need to know about who becomes the next speaker?
So I'd say just number one, why it matters who the next speaker is because the Speaker of the House, Republican, Democrat, will determine all of those things that come to the floor of the House of Representatives. So if you want to see term limits, but you wonder why it's not there, it's because the Speaker of the House didn't allow that bill, as an example, to come to the floor of the House. All of the things that the committees will look at in terms of their jurisdiction to go out there and conduct oversight over Hunter Biden or over the Afghanistan withdrawal or a host of different things, those things will be run through the Speaker's office. So that's why it really matters to the American people who the Speaker of the House actually is.
Well, thank you for that. A Washington Examiner op-ed argues that Americans wisely voted that both political parties deserved to lose. Here's a quote. National Democrats have caused or greatly exacerbated inflation, border chaos, a crime wave, and an illicit drug crisis. National Republicans didn't just spread the lie that the 2020 election was stolen, but even after a vicious incursion into the Capitol, a majority of House Republicans voted against certifying the election results. Neither major party deserved full governing party. Voters in their collective wisdom created that outcome. What do you make of that op-ed?
I agree with everything that op-ed said about Democrats. I disagree with what they said about Republicans that didn't vote to certify the elections, me being one of them. We can go back and rehash this in a number of different ways and say that people like Hillary Clinton said for years that Donald Trump was illegitimately elected, but that's a he said, she said thing, so I won't get into all of that. The fact of the matter is President Biden's been taking America in the wrong direction. Republicans have a different direction. We will put that onto the floor of the House of Representatives. How to change border policy, how to change energy policy, who needs to be held accountable. The Democrats will be given the option to vote yes or no, up or down on those things, and we'll see where they stand.
You know what? It's so interesting because you're touching on foreign policy there, and look at what's going on in the world right now. Let's do a look at this. Fox News alert, the latest on Poland and the missile that landed in that NATO country, killing 2 people. President Biden has spoken with Poland's president now. The people who died were in a village near the Ukrainian border. Immediately when the world learned about this late yesterday, the concerns began to grow that the United States could get pulled into defending that allied nation. But as always, we wait for the facts. Waiting for the facts is critical. President Biden and his Polish counterpart began to tamp down on those concerns. Let's watch.
President, is it too early to say whether this missile was fired from Russia?
There is preliminary information that contests that. I don't want to say that till we completely investigate, but it's unlikely in the minds of the trajectory that it was fired from Russia. But we'll see.
We do not have any conclusive evidence at the moment as to who launched this missile. The investigation is underway.
Before we go back to the congressman, he and I will watch this together. It's a flashback to President Biden last year in Warsaw.
The United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power. There is no doubt that the United States and every NATO ally will meet our Article 5 commitments, which says an attack on one is an attack on all.
All right. First of all, your response to the back and forth there from a singular person.
Yeah, so number one, this is the most concerning thing to me. This was one of the most likely scenarios that could happen in this conflict, that ordnance, whether it be from Russia or the Ukraine, land in another NATO country. And the administration should have had concepts of operation in place to say, if this happens, then execute plan 195 or 196 or whatever that may be. And what you see instead is a level of chaos out of them where they're uncertain about what their reaction is going to be and what they're going to do. As it relates to NATO, we should fully support our Article 5 what you could say are our commitments to NATO. We should fully support that. And whether this came out of Russia or the Ukraine, this is absolutely a litmus test for what NATO will do, and that is the way that Vladimir Putin has to be looking at it, whether he fired it or not.
You know, I mentioned to our audience you're on the Armed Services Committee, and when I hear you say concepts of operation to execute, your military background also really comes shining through, because everybody has that next plan. And I was reading last night that they were moving pretty quickly to Article 4, which would mean that everybody would then be monitoring every meeting, so on and so on. There is a gear up, and then suddenly we started to learn some of the facts. So what's your take on just how the president talks to the American people about this? Should there have been more said?
I think the president and, in turn, the Pentagon as well, they spoke about this in an uncertain way. And I use that term, concept of operation. He should have given the American people a confidence that if this takes place, then there is a pre-thought out, pre-planned American national security objective that's going to be met by doing this action. And he should have laid that out, that this has been well thought out, not that they're just now sitting in a war room saying, man, I wish we would have thought about this happening when it became so likely. So he needs to give that confidence. And one of the places that I didn't have confidence in that was the reaction from the Pentagon, where their first reaction was saying, well, we're not even sure if ordnance went from inside Ukraine, from Russia or Poland, or Ukraine into Poland. We're not even sure if this happened. Absolutely, they were sure that it happened. They knew that it happened, but they didn't want to answer. 100%.
Wow. Let's talk about Ukraine a little bit. You know, election night, I had a live audience of voters' voices, and one of the things we were touching on had to do with where money goes. And there's concern that we aren't trying to do everything, like take care of the American people and then take care of what you can around the world, too. We can't just do one, was what people were telling me. Let's watch this. President Biden has requested an additional $37 billion in emergency aid for Ukraine. That's in addition to the nearly $19 billion of security assistance already provided from the United States since Russia's brutal invasion back in January. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is warning Republicans won't back excessive financial aid without the receipts. You want to know where the money's going. Here's a quote. I think people are going to be sitting in a recession and they're not going to write a blank check to Ukraine. They just won't do it. It's not a free blank check. End of quote. Congressman Mast.
So I did not vote for the $40 billion that went to Ukraine before. I'll give you a quick true story on this. On the day of that vote, I went to the floor of the House of Representatives. I asked a number of my colleagues about what are we buying for $40 billion? Not which bombs and bullets, but are we buying a Ukrainian victory? Are we buying Russian nuclear demilitarization, or they're out of Crimea? You name it. What are we getting as a national security objective? And I asked the Democrat Majority Leader Steny Hoyer that exact question. Here was his direct answer to me. Well, Brian, I just think that what we've been doing so far has been working. So let's just keep doing whatever it is that we've been doing. That was the answer from the Democrat Majority Leader on spending $40 billion of we the people's money.
Congressman Mast, thank you for bringing us the details there behind the scenes and what's going on with money going to Ukraine and all the rest of what we talked about. I'll bring you back. Good to have you in focus. Thank you.
Good to be with you.